So I'd like to go through 3 Joe Rogan videos for you. Joe Rogan, he's a very famous he's a very famous person, ex-fighter and MMA fighter, and has, one of the biggest podcasts. I mean, he's way bigger than CNN. And, his opinion holds sway, and the opinion of his guests holds sway. And so I've got 3 videos here, very short videos to look at. One is he's talking with Richard Dawkins, and they're sort of saying, well, was Jesus a person? I suppose, but, so that kind of thing. Then he's going to talk about, with Matt Walsh, well, if God makes people, then, why does he make some people gay and then say it's a sin? Pretty good question, huh? And then the last one is, Islam gives so much discipline. Look at the great fighters that are Muslims. The religion gives so much discipline. Okay, so I'm going to look at those 3, and the reason that I'm doing this is to sort of show you that there are answers out there. Once you look at these things and you see it in a TikTok, or you see it in a YouTube short, or you see it somewhere, you read about it, it comes across as so very convincing. You think, gosh, what would be any sort of answer against that? So even if you don't find my particular answers, really compelling or correct, there are answers out there. And if you look around and you read around, you can find them. And so I want to give that as an encouragement to you. So let's start looking at this first video by Joe Rogan and Richard Dawkins, and it's was Jesus a real person?
Do you think he was a real person?
Most of the scholars I've talked to say he probably was. The evidence is not great, of course, but I don't think it's that big a deal, actually, because a wandering preacher called Yeshua or Yehoshua would not be surprising. I mean, it's a common name,
right.
And there are plenty of wandering preachers. What would be very surprising would be if he raised Lazarus from the dead and walked on water and turned water into wine. And that, of course, did not happen. And the point I'm making is that it's a very big difference to say, did he exist? That's very different from saying that a miracle worker, who really did do miracles rather than conjuring tricks, existed.
Yes. I think when they get together and they talk about all the values that Jesus proposed, if Jesus is the higher power, it gives them this sort of, again, moral scaffolding to live their life.
Yes. Well, Jesus would probably on the whole provide a fairly good moral scaffolding. Not totally, but he was ahead of his time anyway.
Okay, so he was ahead of his time, but Jesus, having a wandering preacher at that time called Jesus, I mean, that's not really impressive. What would be impressive is if he actually did the miracles that they say he did, and of course that can't possibly be true. But let's look at a few things here. Number 1, Richard Dawkins and Joe Rogan are way behind the curve. Jesus is one of the best attested ancient figures. There are dozens of references. You've got the whole Bible. You say, well, the Bible, we can't use that as like a real You can use it as a real reference. It is a very good reference. But let's say you want to put that to one side. You've got Bar Seraphon, who is talking about Jesus. He's a Jew. You've got Josephus, who is a Romanized Jew, and a number of other Roman historians, contemporary Roman historians, let's say within 100 years of the crucifixion, who are talking about Christians. They're talking about Jesus and who he was. So he's an extremely well attested figure. He was there. Now, okay, you say, well, there are many wandering preachers. Yeah, so why this one? Well, there are some good reasons. I mean, even if you don't want to take the miracle of turning water into wine or walking on the water, just the miracle of the resurrection, okay? This is there is plenty of evidence for the resurrection. You say, oh, please, there's no proof. Right. There is no proof for anything outside of theoretical mathematics. There's no proof. Yeah. So you say, well, I have a video of it. Well, AI can make almost any video of anybody doing anything today. So is that proof? And you think, well, okay, it's not proof. Evidence. We have a lot of evidence. And if we look at the probabilities, what is the probability? For example, in the story of the resurrection, you see, for example, that the apostles are, Jesus's disciples are big chickens. Things start to go wrong and they run away. Peter denies him. It was only John with Jesus's mother at the cross, and he's just this kid and trying to take care of Jesus's mother as his leader is being crucified. These men, they run off, and then 3 days later, who finds the empty tomb? The women. Marketing disaster. But this is what's called the Criterion of Embarrassment. You wouldn't write it that way if it wasn't true, because it makes the main characters look really bad. There is a Gospel of Peter written about 400 years later, so it's absolutely, completely wrong, irrelevant, etc. But, here, Jesus is crucified, but he steps out of the tomb in front of everyone, and as he steps out, he's so big and tall that his head goes above the clouds, and there's a singing cross, following him out, and like this huge sort of monstrous God figure. That might be how you write it if you want to convince everybody that this is God. Because there's no embarrassment there. There's no, this, our God was crucified. No, he came out and it was this, he burst out of the tomb. Criteria of embarrassment. If you look at the Roman historian Tacitus, he talks, this is from, within 100 years of the crucifixion, he talks about, these Christians. And what happened is that Pontius Pilate smashed them down. He finally smashed and killed Jesus, and it was like, finally I have some rest from these people. And then it just exploded after that. And if you combine the cowardice of the disciples, and then the fact that it kind of went down and then came roaring back, that's proof that, evidence that they saw something that turned them from chickens into lions. And so that's an important piece of evidence there. And not only that, but it didn't just start to spread. It started to spread from where the events took place. It's not like it, some people in Alexandria sort of picked this up and they started to run with it. No, it was from the place where there would have been people to say, this is bunk. This didn't happen. These people have no leg to stand on, and we don't see that. Now that's an argument from lack of evidence. There's a name for that. But anyway, there's an argument from lack of evidence but it is there. And you do see the whole thing just went to pot and then blew up like this. There's evidence that Jesus was seen of 500 people at one time. He was seen by all of the apostles after that. So, plenty of evidence. There's the evidence that the guards gave, that Jesus had risen and they had been overwhelmed or overcome. And so please, I'll put in the description, I have a talk about that. But there is compelling evidence that a huge, unprecedented thing happened. And of course, after that, the religion grows, and we even change the calendar to accommodate this, I suppose he existed, wandering preacher. That, not one of those things is enough to make a person believe, but once they start to stack up, you think, wow. And the same thing happens when you start looking at, the predictions about Jesus from the Old Testament. And I think it's something like 353 different places that that Old Testament prophecy came true. And you think, 1 or 5 or 10, is that enough? 15, 25, that sounds pretty good. 353, it's almost like it's too many. Amazing prophecies, specific prophecies that actually people are like waiting on and looking around for. And when they did see Jesus and doing all the messianic miracles that he was supposed to be doing, you see the priests and the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they're looking at Jesus, and then he's saying that he's the Messiah. In fact, he's saying he's God, and they're like, whoa, we're not going to do this. But he was doing the right stuff. You see the dynamics, the political dynamics of what went on. I mean, it's a very credible story. And then based on all that happened, what is probable, not just what is possible. Possible. What is probable based on all those things, that this explosion in Christianity, and there was a resurrection. So these are some possible answers to what Dawkins and Joe Rogan were saying. I think I might just add to that even in the arrest warrant for Jesus, they're talking about, he's blasphemed, he's claimed to be God, and he is doing sorcery. Well, sorcery is just miracles with a different source than heaven or God. And so, they admit he did these things, but they are attributing it to bad stuff. And I just want to read the quote from Tacitus for you. Tacitus, this is from AD 116. Christus, from whom the Christian religion had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. And a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, so they crucified this guy and things sort of went off the boil, thus checked for the moment, again broke out, not only in Judæa, so it came out of Judea, it came out of the place that these things were happening, the first source of the evil, he calls it, but even in Rome, it made it all the way to Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. So there are answers out there, and I want to encourage you to dig for these answers, and this channel is really part of doing that. So let's go to another video from Joe Rogan. This one is from a Catholic guy by the name of Matt Walsh. I think he's at the Daily Wire, and he's got some really good stuff, but I think he tripped here a little bit on his answer. But let's add our answer to Matt Walsh's answer and see if we don't come up with something good.
Why would God make people gay in the first place?
Well, of course I would say it comes from God. If I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't be Christian.
Why would God make people gay? Well, if he didn't want them to engage in gay sex?
All people have proclivities or towards different sins, different things that we would call sins.
Yeah, but if that's like their fundamental attractiveness, they're attracted fundamentally to other men, or other women. Why? It seems like something that God gave them. Like, why would God give you an attractiveness, or why would you be attracted to the same sex if that was morally reprehensible, if that was against God's will? Why would he instill that lust and that desire and that feeling of being attracted and feeling of being in love with someone of the same sex?
So a fundamental attractiveness. And, Matt Walsh, he's kind of, he doesn't seem very engaged here. He seems to be a little bit on his back foot. I'm not saying that what he says is necessarily wrong. God does know you from the beginning, from before you were born. Psalm 139, verse 13, David's talked about, is talking about God knows him, God knows man, and knitted him together in his mother's womb. God, Jesus, holds things together. Colossians 1:17 says, and he is before all things, and through him all things consist. So it is the hand of God keeping the whole thing running. But we are fallen. We are doomed because of Adam's sin. Through one man, sin and death came into the world, and one man, the man Jesus Christ, is fixed that. And so, I don't think we have, in a way, we're not necessarily born completely sinful. I don't think sin isn't necessarily our biggest problem. I think death is our biggest problem. It was the sin that brought the death. And because we are physical human beings descended from Adam, we are in trouble, and death is the thing that's going to get us. God may have constructed us with defects. If you look at the story of the blind man, the disciple said, well, who sinned, this man or his parents? Because they were saying, well, the birth defects were a sign that you were a sinner and you had done something wrong, which would be kind of hard to do as a baby in your mother's womb. But anyway, and Jesus says, neither of those. He was born blind so that I could heal him and show to you that I'm the Messiah. Okay, so what God allows as far as how we're born is one thing, but he gives us and he tells us what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to deal with each other. And you have fundamental attractions, as I do, that are just not good for you. You may have a fundamental attraction to sex. And you say, well, it's heterosexual sex. Okay, well, no, that's called fornication, and that's a sin. We're all fundamentally attracted to the opposite sex, but it's how do you do that, and in which bounds do you understand that? And there are certain things, all the LGBTQ nonsense, that is outside of all the bounds, okay? And so, we know this because God has told us these are the things you don't do. Even though you may have a proclivity, even though in your upbringing this may have been instilled in you, and you say, no, it wasn't that. I knew from a very early age that I was attracted to men. I knew from a very early age that I was attracted to the same sex, or that I was an angry person, or that I was a greedy person, or that I whatever. If you boil all sin down to the base, it's all idolatry. It's all putting yourself before God. And that is what we need to do. So we can even just kind of take away all the sins and say, look, if we boil it down and we put God first, all that other stuff, it completely falls away. And we have free will. Oh, free will, this, no, it just seems like free will. You can find all kinds of YouTube videos on this, no, we have no free will. It can't possibly be true. Yes, we have something that looks like free will and it's just as good as, but we don't actually have free will. And then people who say, yes, we have free will, we can do what we want. We have free will. We can't do anything we want, but we can make a choice, and we can make a choice to have faith in Jesus Christ. And we can make a choice to have faith in all kinds of things. We have enough free will, okay, let's put it that way, that we can make a choice for Jesus Christ and to follow him. And he says, okay, if you're going to do that, this is what that looks like. And we have that in the Bible. And of course, people are trying to change it. And people are trying to say that most recently the LGBTQ stuff is okay. And of course, it's absolute evil, utter evil. Just as the prosperity gospel is utter evil. Send us a check for 100 euros right now, or $100 right now, and you'll get this back tenfold. And then they've got some, lady pensioner on there, and she says, yes, I sent in a check for $1,000, and I got this totally unexpected windfall check back from the IRS, or the Internal Revenue Service. Taxes, I got a tax break, got a tax check back of $10,000, totally unexpected. And this is an example of the prosperity gospel. Another completely evil thing that has gotten into the church. But God is allowing you your free will to do what you want, just like your parents did. They had children, and your children can grow up to love you, or maybe not love you, or be indifferent to you. And we are, in that way, God's children, and we have a choice of whether we want to follow him or not. Okay, let's get on to the last video, and that is about Joe Rogan praising Islam.
It's one of the most popular religions in the world, but it's a religion that embraces discipline. You go through Ramadan, you're not eating all day, you're not drinking any water all day. That belief system helps people, keeps them disciplined, keeps them on a good path. I mean, how many great fighters are like devout Muslims?
Okay, so this is a logical fallacy, because I did a little Googling on this, and I think you can probably find more, maybe not MMA, but certainly the great boxers of all time were Christian. Every religion has some of the disciplines. It's not just Islam. And of course, Islam is, it means submission, and we should submit to God. But he overcooks it. I think he's talking more about the superficial, the veneer of Islam, and what they do, and not really, how people practice it. But what's his name? Andrew Tate says he was attracted to Islam because Christians. Everybody makes fun of Christians, and Christians are like, oh, we have to be love and light and all that kind of stuff. Where if you insult Islam, well, the Muslims will kill you. I mean, that's the kind of people. They're serious about their religion, and it's not true. It's just not right. It's a murderous kind of thing. The Quran does not value, Muhammad does not value life like life should be valued. And this is also in the Hadith. Women are very much second-class citizens, and so it's a cult. It's a cult. It's like the Mormons. A lot of links, a lot of the similarities between Muhammad and Joseph Smith in Mormonism. It's a Christian cult. Yeah, it's somebody who was a little bit confused about Christianity and Judaism, and just kind of put something together and wasn't really sure, and just put it out there. Just compare the lives of Jesus and Muhammad together. Jesus was God and the example, the perfect axiomatic hero. He was tortured and killed in the worst possible way for the least guilty person. And Muhammad was a warlord, and was spreading Islam in that way. You don't have to dig very deep to find that Islam is not where you want to be, and certainly not the truth. And so he's got a logical fallacy here that Islam has a lot of rules. Rules bring discipline, and say, look at these tough fighters that they have. Yeah, kinda. We do have these religions that do give us discipline. They do give us an explanation. Islam or Hinduism or whatever. It gives us an explanation of why things are like that, and that can be helpful. But where we want to end up is not in a club that makes us feel good or disciplined. We want to end up with the truth. And Christianity has the truth. It has the most evidence toward the truth. And that's why I'd like to encourage you to pursue. Keep asking the questions. Listen to these things. Ask hard questions of yourself. Don't let yourself get away with, God of the gaps, thunder, where did that come from? God did it, none of that. You don't have to do that with the Christian God and with the Bible. There are no contradictions. And in the Bible, it is a historically reliable book written by eyewitnesses in the time of other eyewitnesses who saw the same things. They talk about supernatural events that were clearly predicted before, some hundreds, sometimes thousands of years before. And the writers claim that they were not writing this, it's not a human, it's not a man-made book. It is written through the inspiration of God. So those four things, it's historically accurate. It was written by eyewitnesses in the time of other eyewitnesses who would say, hey, that's not right, but we don't have that. They talk of these supernatural events that were predicted way over there. And they say, look, we didn't write these things. This was inspired by God. And so I think, we've got a really solid, super solid foundation. We have the truth as a foundation. And even though Joe Rogan and his guests and all kinds of things in the world push back on the truth of Christianity, there are great answers out there. And, keep looking for them. Thanks for watching, and until next time, God bless.